Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here back with Miriam Ashkenazi for part 2 of our Astrology and Money series. Welcome, Miriam.
Thank you, thank you.
We actually have an additional exciting influence this week that I'll talk about in a second. But if you didn't catch last week's episode, I would actually say pause now, go back and hear the first part. We're continuing a conversation because it's inspired by the energy of abundance, prosperity, success that was awakened by a little cosmic activity on Saturday, the Saturday that just passed, which was the 15th of July. Yeah, July 15th. And we explained last week why that is. However, on the Kabbalistic calendar, Saturdays are both the end and the beginning to the week. So we actually have 2 weeks of this energy to tap into. The energy that the universe is really giving us the opportunity to level up when it comes to channeling our purpose, connecting to our highest potential, what we decided to call last week the top of the mountain for each one of us. And also this week we have the new moon of Leo, which is another powerful cosmic window in this period that tends to be a little bit more challenging for most people. We learn that it can be challenging so that we can rise above the challenging aspects. The new moon of Leo is this Wednesday. So if you're listening on Monday, it's this coming Wednesday. Even if you're listening on Thursday, it happened yesterday. And the important thing to remember if you're listening before Wednesday is that we always use the new moon as the opportunity to create a new template for ourselves. It's the seed of the month, which means what we do, our thoughts, words, and actions on the new moon affect the 30 days to come. They leave a mark or create a mold so that the rest of the month will fulfill that mold. So the more elevated our thoughts, the more kind our words, the more sharing our actions. It's really the best day to be your best self and leave that impression for the entire month. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to talk about it over the next few weeks, but Leos are unbelievably amazing people. Let's just put it out there. No, Leos are known. They're both the sun represents the sign, so you know that they kind of feel like the center of the universe, which some of them are. They demand that connection, that respect, that praise. They're also the king of the jungle. So they are good leaders. They're great at moving things from one level to the next. Every sign has their challenges also. So they can be needy and demanding and a little bit controlling. Sometimes they don't see other people the same way that a lion might trample over a few little smaller animals on the hunt. They can trample people. And we talk about this. Every sign has both their positive and less positive qualities. The reason we learn about it is because every month influences each one of us. We all become a little Leo. In the month of Leo, we were all a little Cancerian in the month of Cancer. So we want to be careful that, with all of our good intentions, we don't trample people along the way. We want to make sure that we're being a team player this month. We want to make sure that we're being sensitive and inclusive. And even if our goal is powerful and noble, we want to put people before our projects. So there's a lot of really interesting opportunities. Again, we'll develop it over the next few weeks, but pay attention on Wednesday to that little burst of energy that we're going to receive and use it for good. Last week, Miriam shared with us some really powerful and transformative understanding on what success and fulfillment is, how each one of us, like I said, if you haven't listened to it already, go back and listen to it and then join us. We'll wait. No, I'm just kidding. We're picking up in the middle of a conversation, so it's important that you hear the first part. I think one of the things that we talked about last week was using the chart as a navigation system, that it's a multi-dimensional snapshot of the gifts and opportunities that every individual has. Most of that is based upon their most recent lifetime, but there are other lifetimes that factor in as well. One of the questions that I had after listening, and I feel like a listener in these episodes because I'm learning so much as well. One of the questions that came up for me is I know from doing my own readings that there are different kinds of chart readings. And one thing once you have that initial natal chart reading, which is really who you are and who you've been and what you can do with that. There's the progression chart, which is basically a snapshot of where you are right now in relation to the other influences, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
This is
You're
my understanding.
perfectly right.
So how can we use our progression chart to understand the opportunities that we have as far as work, money, career, and success?
Right. Beautiful. So I think this is actually the most powerful tool. Yes, of course, at first you want to understand your original setting, right? Like this stamp, this is who I am. Those are my potentials. The potential struggles that I want to learn how to deal with. But now, we live life. We work in one place. We want to change a job. We have a dream. We want to build a new business. We want to go on our own. We want to go with a partner. We want to work for someone else. We have so many questions, right? And again, life evolving in different directions. There's so many choices, so many opportunities, and a progression and a transit chart. Actually, it's the combination of both. Is actually taking a look at what's currently taking place and how do I manage and how do I utilize, what do I learn from the current cosmic energies and shifts and how it might influence me so I can make better choices in the right timing. So a chart like that, it's very helpful in any stage you're at, especially if you're not sure what to do or when to do it. So for example, there's certain times we see in a chart, there's one of the planets that we love to take a look at always, because it will always tell you where the challenge might hide, and this is Saturn. So everybody always have Saturn in their chart somewhere. It's never just the Garden of Roses, or how you call it.
Bed of Roses.
Bed of Roses, right. It's never just everything perfect. Even though there are times in life that we do feel a little bit like that, there are areas and in our life that will be a little bit more challenging. Saturn is the one planet that shows us that. So specifically when we talk about business or money, decisions that has to do with work, finances, abundance, we take a look at where Saturn is at, what is reflecting on right now in your life and how to handle that energy. Sometimes it will tell you it's not the time. Sometimes you would want to wait for a time where Saturn is not such a great influence. But sometimes this Saturn is not all malefic. Saturn is also the planet of manifestation and grounding and actually taking an action. So maybe for someone in their chart is not the best time to do something, but when you investigate it on top of your birth chart, it's actually the time to take the action. It's actually the time to manifest something. And there's so many other unique energies that represent that can give you a hint, that can give you a better clarity on the right timing and how to do it and how to manage that energy. For example, Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansions and opportunity. Every year it changes where it sits in your chart, what it will affect, what it will influence. Sometimes it will give you clarity and better answers on the timing when to do certain things. But what's interesting, I think this is why when you say it's a multidimensional perspective, when you talk about the signs, I think what I find very powerful and unique to Kabbalistic astrology is that sometimes people are so curious about the right timing to pursue certain things in business or to sign certain contracts or to go in partnership. And then we look right away in Jupiter, and actually what we see is that the timing right now is to invest in your family or in your relationship. And people don't see the connection. But on Kabbalah, we learn that everything is connected. If you're going to invest in one area of your life that maybe doesn't have a direct connection to making money right now or to a certain business deal, that will bring the opportunity and create the portal for all this abundance to come to you. So that's very interesting. It's something that you can only see and investigate through doing a progression or transit chart.
So what's funny is I have the same conversation often with students when life demands from them to not focus on work. And while they're focusing on work, they have while they're focusing, let's say, on family or their marriage, they have breakthroughs at work. And it was almost like by letting go or not hyper focusing on it, by really, the way I explain it, honestly, is that any success is a result of internal work. So we don't always, we think that work and career are separate from family and relationships when they're really all connected.
Yeah.
And by investing in one, we can create breakthroughs in another.
I have a beautiful example. You just reminded me, a couple came to do a chart reading, and, they had 2 kids and they always wanted to have another child, but they wanted to be more successful. They wanted to make more money. They want to make sure that they're more established. They don't want to bring another new child into
it's not a cheap venture, having a child.
Yeah. So, I'm sure it's in the minds of a lot of new parents and finding the timing, and they're focused on success right now. But in the back of their mind or in the depth of their soul, they want to have another child. And in the chart, you actually see that particular year, they should bring another child. The blessing comes from that. And I remember Karen Berg, our teacher, always telling us, you never know where the blessing is going to come from. And that's another beautiful perspective through the Kabbalistic astrology reading or a progression chart reading, that you're really able to see it all as one. Where am I meant to invest in my life right now? Where is the door to open up for more blessing and abundance to come to me? And it's not always directly connected, strictly to money or business deal or the right time to sign something. It's completely all connected.
But you bring up another sort of side conversation in what you just said, because if I understood right, that in one's chart, the energies of money and work are separate, or the career, money, work, and success are 4 distinct energies.
Right. And that's what's interesting. Again, in the one dimension way to look at chart, the second house of the chart has to do with money. You want to look at that second house and you see what's going on there. It's if it's going to be easy for you to make money, it's not going to be easy for you. Can tell you a lot of things, but everything is connected. There are so many locations in the chart. There is a certain house that specifically tells you about work, and it has a lot to do with making money. What do I mean work? Work is the way that you come to work every day. Is the way that you interact with your coworkers or with your employees or with your employer. How do you enjoy at work? What type of energy you put? Are you a leader at your work? Are you just looking to get, to get things done and go quickly home? A lot of your attitude at work will also be a reflection for how successful you will be in making money, prosperity. Same thing as career. Career and work are 2 separate houses. Career is like, what do I do in order to achieve that place that it's the highest, to be more successful, most influential. And there is a complete place in the chart that also will tell you, how do you share your money? We talk about circuitry, right? Money is not just something, obviously, we want to get. It's also, if we want to create more abundance, we learn that through the teaching of Kabbalah, we need to create circuitry. You also need to inject energy in how do I want to share? Where do I put this? How do I make a difference? So more can come to me. How can I? So there is a certain place in the chart where you can see what are your greatest gifts as far as a person that's sharing the world, that makes a difference, that uses from his resources to create positive influence and change in the world. So there is so much of that, and I would say that almost everything is connected to money. Everything is connected to money. It's not just the location itself, it's also different planets will tell you different stories.
Are there certain signs or certain planets that indicate more abundance or more ease in abundance?
So that's interesting. We spoke about Jupiter. So Jupiter is a planet of abundance. It's a planet of growth and expansion. So where Jupiter is in your chart will tell you a little bit of where it's going to be easier for you, where you want to really, where you can really grow and expand. It's not always has to do with money, but it can do with money. But every planet, like the signs, you were talking about the sign of Leo, there is not only the good or only the less good, as you call it. I like it. It depends where it sits and how it interacts with the other planets. Because Jupiter can show you growth, expansion, opportunities, more money, and more doors that will open in your life. But at the same time, if it's aligned in certain more challenging elements in your chart, it will show waste. It can show where you take things for granted. It will show things when you trust the light and you don't really, you count on the miracle and don't really make an effort. So it depends. As we said, Saturn might reflect areas in your life when you need to work harder, when challenge is going to show up, when you learn from the challenge, when you're going to grow when it's in the difficult time. But if Saturn has some certain good alignments in your chart, it's actually going to make you a great manifester. It's going to help you manifest things much faster. So there is no one way or another. Venus, for example, is another planet that is connected to pleasure and money and physicality and material, the material world. So also there's certain alignment with Venus in your chart. Where does it sit? We'll tell you a story about that. Yeah.
It's interesting because we mentioned last week that the reason we have this boost is because of what happened. Saturday was the day of elevation of Joseph of the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Joseph of the Bible. And if you look at the story of what happened there, he basically came to be an advisor of Pharaoh at the time. And at that time, Egypt was emerging as a world power, and he advised that Pharaoh on how to ensure the success of his empire. And as a result, that's when the Egyptian empire happened, meaning they were, I think it was something like 120 countries they ruled, and it was a time of great famine, and all of the countries basically came to Egypt to be nourished, to have money, to have food. And it was really through that desire, or from Joseph's point of view, it was, we need to be a channel for the world, right? We're accumulating wealth so that we can share it. We're accumulating food storage so that we can share it. It was never for the bottom line. So when you say, it made me think that if in our chart, you can also see how to share your wealth. Exactly. How to share your influence, share your goodness. I mean, maybe as a Kabbalah teacher, to me, it's obvious, but I think I didn't realize that you can actually see that and gain perspective on that in your astrology chart. But when we talk about success and fulfillment, right, it doesn't matter whose study you look at or what book you read, people who live a fulfilled life have purpose in being there for others. It can be, I mean, there's so many different ways that can show up. It doesn't only have to do with money, but that they get up every day. I think the blue zones also, wherever they are, they have a sense of community and belonging, and that they're needed outside of their own private arena. So for us to look at that as a calling as well, not just, I know that with a lot of people that I work with, especially younger people, that they say they haven't found their purpose. A lot of the time when we say I haven't found my purpose, they're saying they haven't found the job that fulfills them.
Right.
And I'm always there to remind them, as well as our listeners, our purpose is not outside of us. You can find a very meaningful and fulfilling profession, job, career, and you can use your chart to understand what some of those possibilities might be. But the reason that we came to this lifetime is to shift inward. And for me, and I think for Miriam and for our colleagues, it may look like, okay, well, you're in a position of service. You're here to help people. You're making a difference in people's lives. That's great. And it's really wonderful. And I love it. And I'm sure you love it. And it's very fulfilling. But that's simply the platform on which the spiritual internal work takes place. And that's why, I mean, I'm thinking of a student of mine, the one that said that, she focused on her relationship, and something that she had been working on professionally suddenly just took off. Right. Like she didn't have to do anything about it. That's a perfect example of how whatever she needed to unlock professionally was a result of her transformation internally and her calling, or let's say in those weeks in her life where she felt she had to put the professional work aside and focus on her marriage, that focusing on her marriage or whatever challenge came up in the relationship was so that she could turn inward and say, how can I take responsibility? What can I shift? What is this coming to teach me? How can I grow from this? That growth resolved the challenge in the marriage and unlocked the professional stuff.
Beautiful. I think I really want to emphasize on something else. I don't know how I didn't bring it up.
Now you are.
Now I am. So in the chart, beside the planets and the houses, there are very important points which we call the South Node and the North Node, which are indicators of the areas in your life, the energies that you weren't so successful with in your past life. And the Tikkun point, which is the North Node, is an indication of the energy that you're here to develop, to nurture, and to welcome into your life. And when you talk about business, career, money, it is a great indicator of your approach toward being more successful as well. For example, someone that comes with the North Node, Tikkun in the sign of Libra, it's probably going to be, and I'm saying it's a very general statement, you need to see where it sits exactly, so just not everybody with North Node in Libra, this specific message makes sense, but generally your life needs to be focused on building relationships, working with others, finding the compromise. Being in business with a partner will probably be the most favorable for you, but might be the most difficult for you. Your nature would be to do things on your own, in your own pace, in your own way. But now that you know that, you always have that guiding point. Or another example, which I love, people that come with Tikkun in Aquarius, for example, that's the energy they need to develop. They might have come from a life that is more traditional, more conventional, and in this lifetime they need to break that pattern. When new ideas come to them, or things that they need to do that might scare them even, right? It's like on a bigger scale, break the walls, think outside of the box, do things that are unique. Nobody ever did it before. This is probably what they need to do. So if you know that, you already have that internal voice when you are in a moment of what should I pursue or what type of career, you know that taking that route will take you to your higher place.
To me, that's been knowing that North and South Node relationship has really influenced my own work. Like it's really brought a lot of meaning to what I do. I think when you know, and this is sort of me being a little self-deprecating, maybe a little bit humble, depending on how you want to look at it. But when I started to learn about that, which I want to say is about 20 something years ago, I understanding better about it. I don't know if you remember this. We were working in an office at the time at the Kabbalah Center, where I think there were maybe 7 of us and 5 of us have the same North Node. It was like maybe 6 months that we were all working together. And it made me think, okay, it can't be a coincidence. What do we have? What's shared between us? And one of the issues that we had, it's one of the opportunities to develop is teamwork, right. Learning to trust other people. For me, I can't say I've completely healed this, but a lot of my North Node shows up in I'd rather do it myself than let someone else mess it up.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's in, I don't want my husband to do it. I don't want anyone in the office to do it. I don't want to give it to another teacher. I'd rather do it myself, be up to here and work, be angry, but at least I'll do it right. That's one of mine. So in realizing, and I love the language that you used about it, because it's like there's certain things that you're here to develop and certain things that it's to leave behind.
Exactly.
And the realization for me that I'm not here to do it all, that actually part of the reason I came to the world at the time and the date and the year that I came was to learn teamwork and trust and sharing responsibilities, and that my fulfillment is going to come from that. Realizing that was the big shift. And hopefully this is speaking to somebody out there who's going to have an explosive aha moment and their life is going to change forever. But sometimes the way that we do things, they feel right and they feel the best, and you think you're doing it for everybody else and it's the right thing to do and it needs to be done this way. But if it's making you miserable or angry or passive aggressive or hostile or resentful,
or it never works out at the end.
With me, it always works out in the end, but I'm miserable.
Right.
So is that really working out? Like maybe you need to change your definition of what it means so that things will work out.
Right.
Everybody's clothing will be ironed, but are you happy? If you're not happy, who cares how pretty everybody looks?
It's a cycle. It's a cycle.
Right. And sometimes we're so locked in that loop that we don't realize that it's actually our perception that is making us upset and not everybody else and their inability to do whatever you're doing. So part of the excitement in sharing this with you, and why, I mean, again, astrology to me is such a powerful tool, is because when you learn about it, you realize how much you don't know and how much more there is to do and to grow and to be, instead of staying locked into those beliefs and those patterns. I can even tell you, for me, astrology helped me open up to the concept of spirituality because I found that it was so precise. I couldn't ignore the other explanation and the rest of the wisdom if Kabbalistic astrology was so literally scientific, like Swiss clock precise. So for me, it's something I go back to again and again when I find I'm losing. Whatever I'm doing isn't working for me, I can go for it's back to my Kabbalistic astrology and have like internal adjustment and refocus, and then continue in a more enlightened and, most importantly, fulfilling way.
Right.
That to me is the biggest. If you are miserable, you need to know that it's something you can shift inside you. And part of what we were trying to share today is that Kabbalistic astrology can help you navigate that exploration. Is there for you, Miriam, something that to be able to do readings every day, every week, multiple times, what is it that makes you so passionate or excited to share this with people?
I think part of it has to do with what you were just sharing, like how precise it is. And for me, really, the excitement comes from after every chart that I do, I see the magnitude of the light. I see how it just reinforces my certainty in how the universe operates and how the light is in the business and in everything. Because what I also find super beautiful, I always tell it to my clients, students that comes to the reading, not because I want to say it, it just happens to be that way, especially when people come to progression chart and transit charts, they come in the perfect timing. When something is just about to shift, or when something just shifted a week ago and now they need to learn a lesson how to utilize that shift for the upcoming month or 2 months. It's just like the timing is unbelievable. And, I'm in awe. I'm in awe. That's mostly what I feel. And the lessons that you teach, that you learn, that you share with someone about their chart is for life, right? It's like it's the consciousness to develop, like we talk about tikkun in everything in life. It's just like give such a deep perspective on how to live your life and be happy, right? Is that's what we talked about Saturn, for example, right? Saturn in traditional astrology is a very malefic planet.
What do you mean by malefic?
Well, I don't know if that's the right maybe description, but it's like it's always going to give you bad news. It's like the sign. It's where things going to slow down, when it's going to be heavy. But when you look at it through the perspective of the Kabbalistic astrology, it's actually considered to be the greatest teacher. In times where Saturn has a strong influence of you on your chart, is the times that you grow the most and you get the wisest. And you look at your life in the hardest times of your lives, when you overcame a challenge, you attribute that time to be the most powerful time of your life. Later on, it's not always easy to do it on the spot, but with the perspective of Kabbalistic astrology, you learn how to activate that energy when it's actually taking place in different times in the future or currently in your life. You learn to observe, to look, to have a point of view on the challenging times of your life or aspects of your life in the way that it's really your greatest gift, your greatest time. And I think that perspective, that Kabbalah and astrology together, that's what's unique for Kabbalistic astrology. I don't think you get it in traditional, conventional astrology. It's things are or good or bad. But
also the finality of it, it's like, this is who you are. You're a Pisces. This is who you are. Take it or leave it. That's like, I think the bad rap that astrology gets is that, this is who I am, take it or leave it.
Right.
And we learn the opposite, that we learn who we are so we can change whatever it is that is not as favorable.
That's the purpose of studying Kabbalistic astrology, is to be above the influences of the stars. It's possible to be the masters of our own destiny. And with the wisdom and the knowledge of Kabbalistic astrology, we get another tool to do that.
This week is also, this Saturday is another day of elevation of a famous Kabbalist named the Ari Rav Isaac Luria. It's this Saturday. And that's also important for us in this time where we're in the midst of what we call the three... It's misnomered, the 3 negative weeks. They just tend to show us different challenges. And it's only 3 weeks, but we have different days throughout that process where we get boosts of energy. And this Saturday is one of them. The Ari Rav Isaac Luria, if you've ever heard us talk about reincarnation or meditation, even what we know about the Kabbalistic calendar, a lot of that comes from the writings of Rav Isaac Luria. So all of the light that he revealed, all of the wisdom that he revealed, and that energy behind it is available for us this Saturday. That's another reason that these weeks are both can seem dark, but are also very powerful. And I'm wondering, Miriam, I know I am kind of catching you off guard, but if there's anything you can share with us about this period that we're in astrologically in general, like, are there certain planets that are influencing us that we want to take advantage of, or are there certain things that we should be careful about? Again, not from the point of view of it is what it is, but like you said, there's windows that open and close. And I wonder if you're here, like you said, the timing, divine timing of you being here is to give our listeners a certain message.
So I actually think there's something very powerful. I don't like to talk about cosmic influences that are here for a day, 2 week or 2, because also for this show...
For sure, no, that's why I know that some planets are with us for months at a time, so it can happen.
So it's actually not with any planets. Okay. I know that recently there have been some shifts with Saturn and Jupiter, but what I find more exciting is what actually took place, or actually taking place right now. It's on July 17. There is a shift. We spoke about the North Node and the South Node. And every year and a half, they shift a sign. And they're actually shifting right now.
Today.
Yes. So that's crazy.
Yes, today.
Right now, they're shifting. For the last year and a half, the South Node was in Scorpio and the North Node in Taurus. And we'll explain what it means. And it shifts into the North Node being in Aries and the South Node in Libra. So we just spoke about it. And
that's going to last now for a year and a half.
For a year and a half. And it's going to influence all the babies that are going to be born in the year and a half for the rest of their life. But it's also influencing us, meaning that it's a message for humanity, for the energy that we need to leave behind and the energy that we need to develop for the upcoming year and a half. So now we talk about Aries and Libra from a different angle, right? We spoke about Libra if it's in your chart. But what does it tell us? It tells us that we need to actually, the energy of Aries is the one that we need to develop now. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries is the sign of the me, the self. How do I want to present myself? How do I initiate things? What am I going to do to leave the victim consciousness behind for all the things that don't work in my life because of. Libra can tend sometimes to be the sign of like, I can't do that because of that, blaming, so much affected by the environment that is very hard to move or make decisions. It's time to make decisions, ownership, and to see where in your life you can act more confidently and more brave, do things without any attachment, if it's to the past or to your environment or what people told you or the advice that you got, or all the things that we cling to and can't let go of that are not really us. This is the time in our life to develop that quality, to develop that consciousness and this attitude. So in everything that we do, we want to make sure, we want to check ourselves. Am I coming from a place where I stay where it's comfortable, when I don't know what to do, so I'm going to base my decision on someone maybe more powerful than me, instead of like really going deep within and seeing what I need to do and what I want to do. This is the type of internal battle, struggle, conversation that we all are encouraged to focus on in the upcoming year and a half as individuals and as humanity. And, I'm sure there will be interesting to meet in a year and a half and to see how it affected us as humanity. Where does it take us?
I've never considered how North Node affects. I've only considered how it affects the people born in that time. I've never thought about how it affects all of us who are alive already at that time. Wow.
Yeah, so it's another dimension.
That is unbelievable. And is there anything that we shouldn't do? Like you talked about things that how we should lean into this time period.
So the truth is, South Node and North Node is not a complete don't do that, do that. It's the balance you find. Okay, so it's the balance you find between listening, incorporating, working in a teamwork, and finding your own space, your own voice, your own individuality. Is finding the right balanced place for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I told you guys, I'm a listener on these episodes as much as I am the host. Thank you, Miriam. That was really, really powerful. I want to make sure that all of our listeners know that we still have for the next week a special discount on Kabbalistic astrology readings of all kinds. So whether you're doing a natal chart, a progression chart, there's a business chart, you still do the family dynamic charts. Can you tell us 2 minutes about how that differs from a regular chart?
Yes. So one of the charts that we used to have, it's also a comparison chart where if you feel like you want to investigate a little bit deeper between a certain relationship in your life, let's say your partner, your mom, your child, you can look at two charts. So one thing that I developed a few years ago, it's what we call a family dynamic chart. It's a longer reading. It's a 2-hour reading when we take in consideration all the family units. So if it's, let's say, a husband and wife and 2 kids, or you want to see the relationship between you and your siblings and your mom or your dad, and we see how everything works together, how we can learn from each other, what we can learn about our possibly the tikkun from past life, the interactions we had in past life, how we can help each other in our tikkun, in our soul's journey in this lifetime, and work as a better unit. So this is very powerful.
I've had students who've done those readings, and it really helps to direct your energy in the right places. To, okay, you recognize that our battles come from this, but here's how this is why we're together, and to focus on why we're together and not the things that separate us.
Right.
So I can tell you I haven't done one, which I know last time I said, okay, I should do it. So maybe it's another reminder for me. But the people that I know who have done it, it's a phenomenal way to rethink and learn a new approach to engaging with the people that you're closest to or who you were closest to, so that you don't pass down those patterns and those habits to future generations. So we have a special discount on astrology readings through the week for our listeners. You can go to weeklyenergyboost.com, click the link. The coupon code is there. It's also in the description of the episode. And you can always reach out if you have any questions about that. Bearing in mind, this is still the challenging time period. So we usually tell people in this time, not to start anything new that's major. You know, if you want to go on a new jogging route, that's okay. Or you want to try a new recipe, feel free. But the more substantial, I wouldn't buy a car right now or a major appliance that you want to last for for a while, those kind of things. But it really, to me, even when we share that, it's really more to me an understanding about managing our energy. And that's, to me, another big part of having an astrology reading is learning how to manage your energy. And we didn't really get a chance to talk about that. But just as an example, I had a reading a number of years ago, and I was told that I need to work on communicating, that I have a particular opening for the next, I don't know, it was 6 more months, that if I will develop my ability to talk and express my emotions and my feelings, I will create a breakthrough there that I won't have the opportunity to afterwards. And it may make things more difficult if I haven't strengthened that muscle. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have an astrology reading, and how much I was then with that information, I was then in control of how I spent my energy for those 6 months, and literally for the years afterwards as well, because I had that understanding. So even when we say this time of year, it's not good for major purchases or marriage or, big contracts or whatever, what we're saying is, if you can contain your energy now and not spend it, you will have more energy, more assets, more blessings to spend later on if you're not busy trying to spend them now. The same way that a farmer, knows when to plant, knows when to harvest, knows when to plow the field. It's the same thing. It's a science. And I'm not just telling you from my experience, I'm telling you from so many students that I've worked with over the years, that this is really where the work is: energy management. And the calendar is a part of that, and the Kabbalistic astrology is a part of that as well. So I really hope that everybody who's listening will take advantage of that opportunity. It's good for 1 more week. I think the discount is until the 29th or the 30th. You can read about it online. Miriam, I thank you so much for being here with me again. We've gotten so much feedback, so many compliments. So many people have reached out saying how we should do it all the time. Maybe we need a separate podcast so we can do it all the time. And just as a reminder to all of our listeners, we are on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us on social media. You can also go to our website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where you can find the link to schedule an astrology reading with a discount, as well as all the things that we want our listeners to know more about. You can click the donate button on weeklyenergyboost.com and help make this podcast possible. But again, the best thing you can do is to share this episode with the people that you think will benefit from it. And if you're listening now and you haven't yet already, please rate and review the episode or the podcast. That also helps us out tremendously. And let us know if you want more Kabbalistic astrology episodes. We might be able to do it on a semi-regular basis. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, have a fabulous week. Thank you again, Miriam, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.